Alright, guys, real quick, I just want to mention that Bo Nix is not on here, even though he is a big part of our turnaround. I wanted to steer away from the obvious, and I wanted to go to a more macro approach to this video. But yeah, obviously, Bo is a huge part of that, but regardless, enjoy our feature presentation. Alright, well, hello and welcome on the Kodiak Broncos Podcast, and today I'm here to talk about the 5 biggest reasons why the Broncos were able to become a juggernaut overnight. But before we get into it, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, leave a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're not already. You can always wait till the end. Hopefully, I've earned it. And yeah, without further ado, let's dive right into it. So, one of the biggest underrated reasons why we were able to turn it around so quickly. By the way, these are not in any particular order. I think all 5 of these bear pretty much equal weight into how we were able to turn it around so quickly. But the number one thing I wanted to point out, and I wanted to begin this video with this, is, I think teams make their own injury luck in the NFL. You think about chronically cursed teams like the 49ers when it comes to injuries, and you think about teams like the Chiefs that keep guys healthy really well throughout the year. And yes, while there is some fortune involved in that, I think you make your own injury luck. And when Lauren Landau was our strength and conditioning coach, I don't know why everybody was so vehement on defending him when it was clear that the results had been very, very poor. And I can maybe subscribe to the idea that we were a little unlucky or whatever throughout his tenure here, but the fact that Notre Dame was the most injured team in college football last year proves that the results from him and his regime just do not work at all. And once again, not to go after Landau, I think, what he's done with his whole Landau Performance Center, that speaks volumes. But listen, the reason the Broncos have been able to turn it around so quickly, in my opinion, one of the biggest underrated reasons is because Landau is gone. And now Bo Lowry is running our strength and conditioning program. So the Broncos by far had the most one-score losses from 2016 to 2022. I think they're like double the team in second, who I can't remember the other team that is in that span. But thinking about all the times where we could have had a player that could have made a difference during a game, thinking about all the important dudes who we had suffer season-ending injuries while they looked like they were on their way to develop and then they just didn't or whatever. Listen, man, like, I don't know. Thinking about all the injuries we had during that time, we always seemed to miss our difference makers during those games. And we also had the third most man games lost due to injury from 19 to 22, and the most ACL tears in the league by far in that span. So it confirms once again that it was something systematic, and the Broncos went from being cursed and unlucky to selling their injury data to their free agents. So A plus job Bo Lowry, A plus job Shawn Peyton for remaking this whole program. Does this mean that we're not going to suffer injuries? No, absolutely not. But when you look at the facts and you realize that the Broncos have had insane injury fortunes over the past 2 years, yeah, it just confirms that since our injuries flipped overnight, what a job that we have done rebuilding that program. Number two, real ownership again. First of all, I just want to say that I think the Walton Penner Group buying this team in 2022 saved the franchise. And the reason that I think they did that is because for a team that has been built on the back of their owner, Pat Bowlen, once he left and once he was no longer, able to be a part of the team, it went to Joe Ellis to running the show. And unfortunately, he just stunned us in so many ways. We would have had Kyle Shanahan as our coach had we not had Joe Ellis. And I don't know. Joe Ellis also, he just bared so much responsibility for the mess we became after Pat Bowlen had retired. And I was happy that we had a war chest of money with our new owners when it was reported that we had sold to the Walton Penner ownership group. But listen, I had my reservations about them. I was like, all right, are they just going to turn us into a for-profit institution? Are we going to become the great value Broncos? Or are they actually going to care about, reaping the rewards of the investment? And it looks like that the latter is the case because the hands-off approach while being around and, being in the locker rooms while they win and willing to financially invest and build a new facility and build a new stadium, that is fantastic for us. And, you could say whatever you want about the new stadium. I know it's kind of been a hot topic. I will be discussing that here pretty shortly. But listen, I think the Walton Penner Group's buying us saved this franchise. There's no Shawn Payton without them. There's no, turnaround, quite frankly, without Shawn Payton. So it's all a trickle-down effect that has the Denver Broncos where they are today. And once again, for a team that had been built up by an owner as prestigious and as, influential to the NFL as Pat Bowlen, that really, really shows a lot of, how do I put this? It shows that we are headed in the right direction and, continuing our organizational custom That is absolutely fantastic. So Shawn Peyton has had the most insane turnaround in sports that I've ever seen. And yes, turnarounds are part of sports. And yes, we have had teams like the Commanders go from, the second overall pick to the NFC Championship game. But considering the Broncos had so many other circumstances, considering they got their QB 12th overall in the 2024 NFL Draft, and he was the sixth quarterback off the board, considering they had $90 million in dead cap, and they still have $33 million in dead cap, and considering the roster is missing 3 years of first round picks and 3 years of second round picks because you traded for Russell Wilson and because you hired Nathaniel Hackett and then had to fire him and then trade assets for Shawn Payton, like, listen, the fact that we are where we are right now is just absolutely absurd. And he implemented his way of doing things in a flash. And he started out with a bang here. And a lot of people thought that this was going to be absolutely chaotic. A lot of people really don't like Shawn Payton in the NFL verse, but if you're not a Falcons or Vikings fan, I don't really understand why. I think a lot of people are holding on to the weak evidence from Bountygate, but um, thinking about what Shawn Payton has done here, under the chaotic circumstances that we had in 23 and 24, the 5 game winning streak in 2023, when it was clear that the team really wasn't that good, and the playoff run we went on this past year, where it was clear the team had some areas where they really needed to improve, but the fact that we were in literally every single game except for one this past year, the fact that we were able to compete as well as we did in 2023 after allowing 70 points to the Miami Dolphins, it just shows how things have gone under Shawn Payton here. And he has had this team overperforming, in my opinion. He has had them overperforming in a massive way. Now, the only question for Shawn Payton is how do you get them to take the next step? And the only negative thing I have to say about Shawn Payton is we did have to trade picks for him. It's not necessarily his fault. It's not anybody's fault in particular, but yeah, overall, I don't really care. I think he has been well worth it, and he's been an absolute bargain relative to draft capital that we've had to give up. Once again, it is off the back of George Payton's decision to hire Nathaniel Hackett that the ownership was like, no, 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 no. We need to fire this guy, and we need to bring in a proven commodity in Shawn Payton as well. So yeah, at this point, I don't really care. Once again, what we had to give up for him, but just the fact that Shawn Payton has remade the Denver Broncos in his vision, you forget what he also did with the New Orleans Saints. They were a dumpster fire before he got there, and they've become a tire fire since he left as well. So, yeah, it just shows the brass and the uh, intelligence of Shawn Payton and how good of a coach he is that he has turned us around this quickly. And he is the number one voice in the building when it comes to the football operations. So, ultimately, that's why I got to give him his props there. Number 4, we have a real culture. And listen, this kind of has carried over from the 21, 22 teams where, the locker room was always solid. I remember seeing and hearing stories about them coming into the old restaurant that I worked at all the time. And, they've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now. Even though I don't work there anymore, I still hear stories from all the friends that I have back there that, oh, the Broncos came in, they're coming in like every week or whatever. Patrick Surtain said, the biggest part about their turnaround in the 2023 season was that the entire defense was going out to dinner every single week. And, I think with Shawn Payton, he has made it known that if you're like a toxic, disgruntled vet, he is not going to hesitate to move off from you if there's a young guy behind you that has shown flashes. And in particular, the defensive side of the ball, that has remained true. But on the offensive side of the ball, it just remains to be seen how much player development we can truly have. We have a young roster, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. But, with the defense, this has been a really, really big part of why we're able to turn it around. This is why we went from allowing 70 points to going on that insane streak of, like 4 turnovers a game or whatever it was in the middle of 2023. We benched Usang Bassi. We benched Frank Clark. What did we do instead? We threw guys like Jonathan Cooper. We threw guys like Dick Benito. We threw guys like Jaquan McMillan in their spots as well. And Aqib Talib and Brandon Marshall said that during Super Bowl 50, the reason they won so much is because they always hung out. Talib and Brandon Marshall had said that every Friday night they were going out, and then every Sunday they would win. Uh, you know, Brandon Marshall also said that, they were drinking a lot. They were, living their lives and having fun, but they were still able to play at a high level because of the camaraderie that they all had with one another. And yeah, overall, this is just something that I think is really, really good for the team. It's not something you hear about a lot within NFL buildings. Like, I'm sure all these dudes on every single NFL team hang out with one another. But, the fact that the Broncos have instilled such a strong culture where, long gone are the days of, the leaders being guys who almost expected to lose at any given point. Most one-score losses in the NFL for the past 8 years, or in an 8-year span from 16 to 22. And it bears the weight of a lot of the guys that were in the building at that time. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And number 5, real player development. So, you guys might crucify me for this, but last year, during the 2024 offseason, I said that the Broncos were not unfairly named the least talented roster in the NFL heading into 2024. The reason why I say that that was not unfair is because we had started that chatter from our own local spaces. Like, if you go on Broncos Twitter and Broncos Reddit at that time, they all started that conversation. And I don't think anybody was wrong if they had said that the Broncos were the least talented team heading into 2024, just purely on paper and based on what it looked like. And yeah, at the time I was like, all right, we have Miners, we have Surtain, who else? But then last year, when the games actually started, Zach Allen broke out. Nick Bonito broke out. Marvin Mims came into his own. Riley Moss solved our cornerback 2 problem overnight. Wattenberg had basically solved our center training camp battle as well. So a huge part of this and why we've been able to have so many player breakouts is because we have so many position coaches that actually develop guys now, like Zach Strief, Jim Leonard, Davis Webb, and Brandon Jordan have all been the unsung heroes of our turnaround. Jamar Cain is somebody who I should have thrown in there as well, but Brandon Jordan's the pass rush guy who works with a handful of our players. But yeah, so that basically does it for me. This is why we were able to turn around so well. And yeah, overall, I just think with new strength and conditioning staff, with new ownership, with Shawn Peyton, with, real player development, and every other thing I had talked about in this video, I think that's how the Broncos were able to become a juggernaut pretty much overnight in the AFC. So that basically does it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Salute.